Hi, my name is Chris Harris from Bullet Central, and welcome to another one of our Tech Central videos. Today I'm going to get into top sears and why it's important to have the right top sear in your action or rifle. In a previous video I did speak a little bit about the fact that we do have different top sears, and that is something to watch out for in terms of having the right sear engagement. Today I want to look a little bit more at why we need the right top sear, or why we have different top sears at Bix'n Andy. Two, how to identify which is the correct one for your rifle, and three, how to go about actually changing it out. It's pretty simple, but if you watch this video through to the end, I'm sure you'll be able to get it all. First of all, why? Most, if not all, other manufacturers out there of triggers have a one-size-fits-all strategy for Remington 700 clone actions, and this can work. I'm not going to say that there's anything wrong about that. It's just that at Bix'n Andy we decided we wanted to have optimal engagement, and so obviously we don't want too little. If we have too little engagement, your cocking piece is simply going to travel right over the top of your top sear, and you won't be able to hold your firing pin back. And when you have too much, you run into two issues. One, you've got too much surface engagement there between your top sear and your cocking piece, and that can lead to inaccuracy. And then the second thing as well is that it may not allow, depending on how far down that top sear can travel, it may not allow the firing pin or cocking piece to travel over the top. And I put up some graphics so that you can actually take a look at that and see exactly what I'm talking about in both cases, too little and too much. What we've done, we ship our triggers out, both the competition, and here's an example of a competition trigger, and here's a sporting trigger, the tack sport trigger. We ship both of them out today with a default height of 3.8 millimeter. What does that mean? It's an arbitrary number. Essentially, it's the center of the dowel pin on the trigger, measured in height to the top of the sear in the locked position. So your sears have got different positions. You've got the relaxed position, let's call it. That's where it is now. When it is locked, it's when you press it down and the cocking piece is engaging with it. And then you have your released position, which is once the trigger is pulled, the bottom sear in the trigger breaks, and the top sear is then forced down into the trigger. But the only measurement that we're interested in is when the top sear is in its locked position. Like if you just pick up a trigger and you hold a little bar down on top of it and it comes to a stop, all triggers will have a little bit of movement from the relaxed position down to the locked position. So again, the measurement we are interested in is the distance between the middle of the dowel pin and the top of a locked position top sear. Now that can vary obviously with different sears. So if we look at our three different sears, and here I've got just tack sport sears today, but we've got the same system for our competition triggers, you'll see that they are marked with a single dot, 2 dot, and 3 dots for 3.6, 3.8, and 4.0 millimeter. And then on top of the sear, you'll also see there'll be, not on all of them, but we are doing this now as a standard. We want to make sure that people can see which sear they've got in their rifle without taking their trigger apart. But there will be some inscription in laser on the top telling you that you've either got a 360, 380, or 400 sear, which is essentially your low height, your medium height, and your high height. So, and if you do happen to have bought a trigger from us and you detect that you do have the wrong sear in it, call us we can either supply you with a new sear and we charge you for that accordingly, or we can just simply swap that sear out with you. If you want us to do it, there'll be a small labor charge, obviously, for us to change out your trigger. But I would get you to watch what we're going to do today, and then you can determine before you buy a trigger exactly what sear you need. If we look at this chart behind us here, what I've done here is laid out in a matrix essentially the measurement from the top of the dowel pin, not the center of the dowel pin, but the top of the dowel pin, that's just to make it easy, to the top of a locked cocking piece. And these are actually all in millimeters, but we can provide a chart probably on our webpage in fractional inch as well. Essentially, the area that is white here is we have sears that would work, okay, with your action. So for example, let's take an extreme example. If you take a measurement, and again, I'll show you how to do that, but you took a measurement of, say, 5.2 millimeter from the top of your dowel pin to the top of your cocking piece of, say, 5.3 millimeter, we do not have a single sear that would meet your requirement. But then, not to worry, it's very unlikely that you will run into that situation. We haven't yet either. But I would like you to look at this chart carefully in some detail and then see where your action fits in. I've also added underneath here example of a bunch of actions that we've actually measured. Now, please remember that these are the actions that I've measured. Certain manufacturers, these heights can change from batch to batch or action to action. It just depends on the tolerances that particular manufacturer follows. But you can see, for example, say a bat VR, we go across here, had a height between the dowel pin and the cocking piece of 4.65, and if you go up this column, that means that either one of these two sears will work, which would be medium or high. Okay, we'll get to that in a little bit more detail. What I want to do right now is take a look at an action and just see how we measure it, because that is probably the most tricky thing for us to explain to people, and I think this video is going to help a lot. I've got a bat TR action here. This works the same for any Remington 700 compatible action, doesn't matter what it is. If you have an action with a hanger in, right, then what you're going to need to do is put your little trigger dowel pins in, take the trigger out obviously, put the hanger back in the action, and then we will be measuring from the top of that dowel pin there, let me just point it out to you, top of that dowel pin to the top of this cocking piece. That's what I call the top, so because you're going to have the rifle in the upside down position. So I would say top of dowel pin to top of cocking piece. Take a dial caliper or a digital caliper. You can put it in metric or in inch, it doesn't matter. Obviously it's going to be a little bit easier if you switch it to metric because the chart's in metric. But what we do is we use the depth gauge part of this measuring instrument. So that's at the tail end here. You can see as I shift the slide down, the depth gauge will pop out the bottom. So the distance between the end of this depth gauge and the end of the tail of the mic will actually be the measurement that we're looking for. So I'm going to hold this, and it's really important that you probably take about 3 measurements of this. Make sure that your mic is as vertical to the axis of the action as possible. You don't want it like this or like that. And let me tell you, you don't need to make you don't need to be much off to get a fairly different measurement. So hold it upright. I would say it's a good trick not to look at the dial. So you sort of don't look at that, because then otherwise you sort of try and make it happen, So what I'll do is I'm going to go down here now, and we'll get you some detail in this. I think I'm vertical, and I'll read that off, and it's 4.64 millimeter. And look, in our chart here, the bat VR, so I must have done a fairly decent job, is 4.65. And we don't have a TR here, but the VR and the TR have got the exact same specs anyway. So what I would do is do that 3 times, you know, drop it down here. Okay, 4.62. 4.65. So you see it varies a little bit, but that's no big deal. Now in an action, and a lot of them out there don't have hangers like this, that is just straight, you know, pins. Same thing, take your trigger out, put your rear pin in, and put your mark on it, keep it perfectly upright. 4.58. Let me get that right. 4.61. So there you see I've varied by 0.03 or 0.03 of a millimeter. But again, so they're more or less within spec. So now that you've got that measurement, now you come to your chart and you say, okay, so you look for your number up at the top here, 4.6 millimeter, and you can see if you're 4.6 millimeter, you can use either a low, medium, or high sear. No problem. Right? Essentially, we want the engagement between your cocking piece and your top sear to be about somewhere between 25 thousandths and 50 thousandths, right? 0.6 and 1.3 millimeter. So if you look in the table here below, this is actually converted to the actual engagement between your top sear and your cocking piece. So you go down the 4.6 here, and you can see if you have a low, you'd be sort of at the very high end of the low. But with my money, I would use the medium, which is what our triggers come standard with, or you could go with a high. You are welcome, if you have measurements, to call them into us for an action that we don't have here. If you'll see, we have the Bighorn TL3. Now the Bighorn TL3 is interesting. You'll see the one that we measured is 3.89 millimeters, which means that particular cocking piece rides quite a long way away from the center of the action relative to the dowel pin holes, which means that you will need to have a low sear in this trigger. Okay, you would, if you look at the 3.89 here and you go up, you'll see the medium trigger will not work. You will not want to be using not the medium trigger, the medium sear, and you'll certainly want to be using the high. And we've had people call in and say, you know, we installed your trigger in our rifle, and what happens is I pull the trigger, firing pin sort of moves forward a little bit and stops. Well, what's happening there is this is your top sear, and you've got your cocking piece, okay? This is too high. So when you pull the trigger, this is going over and it's forcing this down and jamming, and now it sort of either will stop completely or maybe just sluggishly hit your primer and fail to ignite the primer properly or inconsistently. So I think it's really important, even if your rifle is working, if it's going bang, okay, I don't think that's good enough, because what you're looking for is consistent ignition. And believe me, inconsistent ignition will lead to inconsistent accuracy. So by following this chart and determining which is the right top sear for your action will lead to better shooting. And we want you guys to be happy with our trigger. We've done this for a special reason. We believe it's the right way to go. We don't believe in a one-size-fits-all strategy. We want you to have the optimal engagement. So I would use this to your advantage. So now what I'll do is I'll take apart the tack sport trigger here, quickly show you how we do it and how we change out that sear. There are 3 little torque screws that hold down the front cover. If you've got a left-hand version of the tack sport, you'll have 1 torque screw on the back and 2 on the front. So just take off the 2 on the front first. I'm going to use a little knife, and with the stainless steel trigger, that's okay. I'm going to use a little knife to lever this cover off. Okay. Now, I would stop and ask you, please remember, if you're doing this in a competition trigger, right, this is an aluminum housing, do not use a knife. Okay. You've got, you take a little Allen wrench that's supplied with the trigger, 1.5 millimeter, or you can use a Torx 6 wrench, and there are little jack screws on the back here that you just push this cover plate off. You do not want to damage the cover plate or the housing. Anyway, let's get back to the tack sport. And as you can see, I'm just going around carefully here, little by little on each side, and there you go. We've got the cover off. So inside, here's your various parts. I mean, we've got our top sear, our two little balls, patented ball system. We've got the retainer bar, our bottom sear, and our trigger shoe. So what we want to do is remove the top sear. It's pretty easy. You can just, now remember, you can see here there's a little spring under your top sear, so that can take flight. So just I'm doing this in a way to show you guys now, but there you can see the spring is now extended. You can leave it in there, there's no real need to take it out, but what you will need to do is remove the retainer bar, because if you don't, you're going to find it very awkward, not impossible, but very awkward to get a replacement top sear in. So I took this out, and this, as I say, is shipped as default. It's got the two little dots in it, so this is the 3.8. Oopsie. So let's pretend that we have got a Bighorn TL3, really, top action, but that great action is not going to work with a high sear, medium, or a low sear. So what we'll do is we'll go and select a sear with a single dot. That's your 3.6. Position it in the trigger. There's just a slight little pocket on the one side of your top sear that allows you to engage with the housing on the inside the trigger. Let me just show that to you quickly again, so you can see here. You've got a tiny little boss over here, and on the other side of the top sear, we've got a little pocket, and these two go together. So you want to sort of hold that in there, and then it'll just stay nicely in place. Please remember to put your reset spring in for your sear. Put the retainer bar in, just drops in over that pivot. Put your balls into the little thing, and now the trigger should be working. And all we have now is we're going to have a trigger with a slightly lower top sear. You put your cover plate back on, and you're good to go. What you do want to do is, once you've done this, is make sure that you check your sear engagement again. It shouldn't have changed, it's going to be the same, but it's important whenever you've opened up a trigger, whether you've done that to clean it or services it or just look at it, you should just go over and just make sure that that is finely tuned for your needs. So that's it. The job is just as simple on the competition trigger. In fact, it's just a little bit easier, because you don't have to line up that pocket, and you don't have to take out the retainer bar. It just pops, the top sear just pops out really easy. If you do have any questions, please give us a call. You can also put a comment down below the video in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. But again, I think this is an incredible feature that Bix'n Andy offers. It's something that you should take advantage of and make sure that you've got the optimum engagement. If you do see someone in the range that, struggling with their system, or their rifle's not working properly, or they can't cock it, ask them if they checked out their sear height. We feel that this is something that we probably haven't communicated well enough in the past, And that's our fault, you know, but I'm hoping that this video is going to set this right and certainly help you guys shoot better. So thanks again for being a customer. Thanks for watching these videos. If you like them, please subscribe, because then you'll get a automatic email when we do more videos. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you on the range someday. Thank you.